If you clicked on this video because you want to know how Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 run on a Linux system with an Intel Arc A770 installed, you're in the right place. In this video, I'll only be playing Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 because reasons. I know, the trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6 came out on Monday night. Rockstar's history of porting to PC suggests a delayed release, which might leave us enjoying Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5 on PC, hopefully with Linux, for the next few years. Anyway, I'll be using an Intel Arc A770 on an Intel-based system that uses a Core i5-13500 for its CPU, has 32GB of 3200 MHz DDR4 memory, and uses a Western Digital SN770 as its designated game drive. GTAIV is one of the few games that loads a lot faster on that thing. This game came out as people were just starting to transition to SATA SSDs. What were loading times like back then? Oh, and finally, I'm running these games on Linux, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. It's a great rolling distro that's stable and will keep your system up to date as far as Intel Arc drivers are concerned. Let's get started with GTA 4. So I'm going to look through the graphics settings for GTA 4 before running it on Intel Arc. I would keep things at maxed out settings, but I've observed whether on an Arc card on Linux or a Nvidia card on Windows that jaggies, more formally known as aliasing, are prevalent when playing GTA 4, even at max settings. So I kinda want to try turning things down to see if I can reduce the jaggies. Of course, I could try using VK Basalt to try and reduce the jaggies, but that's sort of out of the scope of things I want to cover in this video. I might revisit that in a future video though. But yeah, I'll be keeping these settings in the 6700 XT playthrough as well. Now, let's get to gameplay. As with previous videos, on the left is the A770 playthrough, and the 6700 XT playthrough is on the right. In this safe house, we see the A770 is producing a little over 250 frames per second consistently, while the 6700 XT produces upwards of 500 frames per second. The high frame rate output of the AMD GPU seems to be throwing off the game's engine's timing. In the A770 playthrough, I had Nico take a walk around the corner to the exotic car dealership, and in the 6700 XT playthrough, I had Nico politely solicit a passing driver for his car, so that Nico could drive around the corner to the aforementioned dealership. And the driver seemingly complied. On the A770 side, it seems Nico enters this exotic car dealership via retractable window, and has his mind set on that golden Turismo. During the 6700 XT playthrough, we see Nico about to pull out the documents he got from his credit union for financing. Back in the Arc playthrough, cut to Nico driving out of the dealership after meeting with one of the salesmen and getting a good deal on financing. Of course, he wants to test the car's alarm system for any shorts or electrical problems as he pulls out of the dealership. Anyway, on the way to Star Junction, which is Liberty City's equivalent to New York City's Times Square, frame output varies from about 60 to 130-ish frames per second on the A770. So, there's numerous variables that can make or wreck your GTA 5 experience, especially while playing on Linux using an Intel Arc card. For instance, the higher you turn MSAA up, the more your frame rate will suffer. While visiting protondb, a site where Linux gamers can share their gaming experiences based on their hardware configurations, I stumbled upon a helpful tip for playing GTA 5 on Linux. Utilize DirectX 10.1. But let's get to the gameplay. With the settings on the screen and an emphasis on MSAA being turned off, we see we're starting off in this high-end neighborhood and Franklin doing a good deed and retrieving a stolen bike at 1440p at around 100 to 125 frames per second. I think Franklin is in the neighborhood to take a look at a car off of Craigslist. Right. A Karen Asterope, which kinda looks like a recent Lexus IS from our world. Cruising uphill, we are getting around 100 to 110 frames per second for the most part. Skipping forward, Franklin finds himself behind the wheel of a Pfister Comet, and I'm not going to elaborate why or how the car change happened. Frames are cruising within a range of 110 to 135 frames, maybe because we're driving in the shadow of that portion of that outcrop adjacent to the road. And now Franklin is being discharged from the hospital. He finds himself in a Pegassi Infernus in a rainstorm. In this playthrough, the game offers a good range of in-game weather scenarios for this video. I saw a range of about 87 to 120 frames per second during this part of this storm. The Infernus design draws inspiration from a number of Lamborghinis largely. Moving along, Franklin is in a Dubocci Exemplar, which kinda makes me think of a cross between the real-world Chrysler Crossfire and Sebring convertibles. But some quick research says this car was inspired by the Aston Martin Rapide. I don't really keep up with Aston Martins, but yeah, that's way up market relative to Chrysler's. The frame rate on the A770 soars to about 130 to 155-ish frames, probably because of the lack of reflections from water puddles on the ground and on the car. On to my concluding thoughts. The performance of GTA4 was decent on Alchemist's top silicon, but GTA5 posed challenges for the A770. Potential driver improvements may address this. Hopefully, this doesn't indicate that there are issues with the silicon itself. On Black Friday, Intel Arc A770s dipped to as low as $160. While games like GTA 5 don't run as well on Arc on Linux as, say, 6700 XT or 3060 Ti, you aren't going to get either of those cards for as cheap as the A750 right now, even if the Black Friday price never ever comes back, and the lowest these cards go for is $180 from here on out. The thing to consider is that these drivers continue to improve, and though I'm happy there are cheap, decent GPUs on the market because of Arc, I'm a bit worried that these basement prices mean Intel is just interested in moving inventory, and are calling it a day as far as driver development goes for Alchemist. But ignoring my doomerism, even though I use an A770 in these videos, the A750 is very close, spec-wise, to the A770. I don't even have to do any weird CSS tricks with the Tech Power-Up Relative Performance box. The A770 is only 7% stronger according to that very useful web element. Both cards have 21.7 billion transistors. The A750 has 28 execution cores, while the A770 has 32. Both have 256-bit buses, and one costs as much as a 3050 for parts from a delusional eBay seller. Maybe give it a try, and Intel, please don't ignore Arc on Linux. Until next time.